Hello and welcome to Ditching Hourly. I'm Jonathan Stark. This episode is actually a cross post from The Business of Authority, which is the other podcast I do with Rochelle Moulton. And I wanted to drop it in this feed because in the episode after this one, we talk about it a fair bit with the guest on that show, Joel Claremont. So I wanted to make sure that everybody had heard this one here on Ditching Hourly before you hear the Joel episode, where we talk about his transition from an hourly billing agency owner to a value pricing soloist. Anyway, stay tuned for that. Now on to the show. Hello and welcome to The Business of Authority. I'm Jonathan Stark.
And I'm Rochelle Moulton.
And today we ask the question, are you over-delivering? And why you shouldn't.
Yeah. You want me to kick this one off?
Yeah, sure. This just came in through your Instagram, I guess.
Yeah. And I want to give a shout out to Tara McMullen because this is directly from her Instagram and post. And it just kind of hit me with a ton of bricks. And basically her question was, are you over delivering? And the premise is that a lot of times the over-delivering reflects basically personal power dynamics, right? Because we learn to justify our value to higher status people by going above and beyond.
Like a boss employee.
Yeah. And her article really talks about both boss employee and, consultant client, but I'm focusing on the consultant client. But I've seen this so many times, and I've even found myself doing it a couple times in the past. And I literally had to stop, kind of slap myself and go, stop that right now. But it's where you feel like you need to over deliver. Like maybe you have a prestigious client, or you just feel like your client is your boss, which is, I think, what happens a lot when we first come out of like a corporate kind of role and you're solo consulting. You're like, oh, I have to do what they tell me. They're the high status person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is so funny when I talk to people about negotiating. So people will come to me and say, oh, I sent a proposal and they came back with these changes and which one should I accept? And I'm like, it doesn't occur to them that they could just accept none of them and walk away from the deal. I'm like, well, are any of them good? None of them look good. They all look terrible. And the person's like, well, yeah, but I mean, either they need the job or, the money, or they feel social obligation because someone referred them and now they're in this negotiation thing and they forget that they can just walk away. Like your clients are a choice, just like your boss is a choice. But it's like they forget that that's one of the options. And then it's like, I'm faced with these three, not terrible, but like substandard options. And like, I guess I have to do one of these. And which one of these is the best one? And it's like, no.
Yeah,
no.
I have to roll over and suck it up.
Right. And I'm like, well, you could just say no. It's like, I considered your suggestions. I gave it some thought and I just couldn't make a business case for any of them. So if you want to move forward with the proposal as it is, let me know.
Yeah. Or you can frame it in the base of your authority. You could say, listen, if we take out this step, I can't guarantee the transformation that I want to. And therefore, I can't do that for you. If that's really important to you, I'm not going to be the right choice for you. I can't take the job.
Yeah.
And most of the time people will go, oh, I didn't realize that, because you're explaining to them that this is an important part and it's part of how you guarantee your outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like you could say, well, you can probably find someone who will skip that step, but I'm not that person. I think it will jeopardize the success of the project. I don't think you'll get, who knows? I don't have a crystal ball, but I think the odds of you getting the business outcome that you desire, the odds are dramatically lower if you skip that step. If you skip the blueprint, I'm pretty sure your house is going to come out bad. So you can probably find someone to start banging nails for you, but I don't want to be that person.
And so, and what I like about Tara's piece is that it really talks about status, roles, and power. So imagine for the moment that you're the guy that you just mentioned who goes, well, I guess I have to do one of these three things. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to do it. And they do it. How do they feel about themselves, right? They feel like they don't have power. They have lower status. And it starts to build, if you keep doing that, it can build, not only can build toxic relationships, but it impacts how you serve your clients and how you feel about yourself.
Yeah, totally. Because well, in that example, you're compromising at least your professional ethics or professional standards, maybe your values, how you see the world, and you just, and why you're doing it. You're doing it for the money. So, well, no, maybe not. I mean, you're definitely doing it for the money, but there could be also this sort of, like you said, this sort of status roles. It's like, well, I guess I have to. Like, the client is the boss. The client's always right?
That's it. Because I think sometimes it isn't really about the money. It's you think you have to. I think that's part of it, is that because it's just so ingrained, especially if you've been an employee and you've had a boss where you had to please the boss.
Right.
Yeah, the client's not the boss.
Right. Yeah, I had a long, I don't know when this will come out. I guess next week, but always next week. But I just did the automatic proposals, a new workshop, and there's a whole lesson on negotiating. And the first thing I say in that is, there's a bunch of ways to there's a bunch of specific lines you can use when the client puts you on the spot with like a particular kind of discount request, or, could we take a little bit of this option and a little bit of that option and turn it into something else? And I'm like, and there's specific answers and ways to handle each one of those objections or those requests. But the big picture is no, just say no. Like, that's one of the options. It's always on the table, right? So if you're new to negotiating, for example, and you're like, I don't know what to say, just say no. Just say no. Well, no, thanks. Or I think I already said it. It's like, well, I thought about it. I took your suggestion. I thought about it. I can't make a business case, so I'm going to pass. But if you want to move forward with this, let me know. And if you just remember, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I also like, instead of just a direct no, I like to say, tell me more about that. I know that sounds like your favorite shrink talking to you, but it does. Sometimes they will tell you stuff that you just like didn't know. Tell me more about that. Why is that important? And hear what they say. And maybe there's a workaround. Maybe there isn't. Maybe you just need to stand firm and no is the right answer. But I like to tell me more. Yeah,
it could. That's one of the things the Hail Mary approach I describe it in the workshop is like, okay, evidently you didn't uncover the right stuff in you either came up with a wrong guesstimate at what the project is worth, or whatever, you're just off base, or the things that you proposed aren't the outcomes that the client actually wants. You just need more practice at the why conversation. So you can use the rejection or the desire to negotiate prices as an indication that, well, I just screwed this proposal up and maybe I just need to write a fresh one, which is an option. I usually don't do it, but if I screwed up, then I'll just move on. But you can do that, just like you said. It's like, well, could you help me understand like why you're not willing to invest more? And it seemed like a really big priority, and you can uncover stuff and maybe find out, who knows, like figure out where you got off track, what you misunderstood, or what assumptions that you made, and then say, okay, forget about that proposal. I'm going to write a brand new one with this new understanding, and it'll have different prices. It'll have different scope of work. It'll be different. It's a different proposal. Yeah. So obviously I've got proposals on the mind, but it feels related. Yeah.
Well, but the proposal is the dress rehearsal for the engagement. So if if you're just kind of fawning and going, oh, can I do this? Can I do this? You're going to keep doing that when you actually get the work.
Right.
And I like Tara's point is that when we do that, when we fawn, we people please, we over deliver, we're trying to prove our value to the people who we perceive as having higher status than us. Right. And I'm just always going to argue that client up here, consultant down here is not good. It is not what we're looking for. It's right. Yes, we're serving. I do believe we serve clients, but we serve them through our expertise. We don't serve them by bowing down to them and genuflecting. Right. We serve by meeting them where they are and helping them to get someplace better. It's, I hate it when we use the word partner on websites. I
do too. I don't know why I don't like that, but I don't.
Because every consulting firm in the world uses that to explain how they work with their clients. But if you think of it in an emotional sense, you are partnering with people. And if you don't want to partner with them, then you probably, shouldn't take them on as a client. You really want to help them get to where they go. But that's how I look at it is we're equal. They have the things they're great at, that they're brilliant at. I have things that I'm great at. And, and we use the best in each other to go forward. So it's more of an equal footing. It's not one up and one down in either direction. It's not like the consultant is the high status and the client is the low status. It's that we're pretty close to equal.
Yeah, and when you spell it out like that, I mean, I suppose it will sound obvious, but I'll just say it out loud. The way to provide value to your clients is not to be obedient. It's to deliver results.
Yes.
So if they are telling you to do something that you, in your professional opinion, don't believe is going to produce results, then they're jeopardizing the engagement. They're jeopardizing the project. So it is up to you to tell them no. You hired me because I'm an expert at mobile design, and I'm telling you this is not going to work. So, so if you can be, and to your point about equals, they are the expert at their business. They started a $10 million business, a $100 million business. I am not going to tell them what their business strategy should be, unless that's what they're asking for. I'm not going to tell them what their customers are like. I'm not going to tell them anything about their product, probably. In my engagements, those are not things I would focus on. I would be brought in as an expert for some kind of like mobile app or something. And they would have veto power over that. Who do they want to reach? What's their strategy? Are they trying to expand? Do they want to move into a different language? Whatever. On my side of the fence, I get veto power on like user experience, page speed, the frameworks that are involved, like all of that stuff. They don't get to tell me, oh, you should use React for this. I'm like, no, I'm not using React for this. You know what I mean? So like they're not allowed to backseat drive on the whole reason they brought you in. They don't get to backseat drive on that stuff. But that doesn't mean it's not a collaborative relationship. Just because you're going to say, no, we're not using that color scheme. If you're a designer, that's not going to be appealing to the people in your market. And I can prove it because I did user testing with these colors and your clients hated it or your customers hated it, even though you like it. That we're not trying to please you. So here's proof that is a bad choice. And we're going to go with these colors instead, because that's what I'm on the hook for. I'm on the hook for delivering the result that you brought me in for. I'm not here to be bossed around as just another pair of hands. If that's what you wanted, you should have gone to Upwork. So, but it's still collaborative. Like the thing, like people, a lot of times, I was just talking to a designer about this, and it was like, she was brought in to do some social media marketing type stuff and put together videos for, like Instagram and stuff. And the question was, well, how many revisions should I give the client? And I'm like, why does the client want these videos created? Like, well, they want it, one success metric would be lots of likes on the videos or lots of shares. And I'm like, okay, do they want likes or do they want revisions? They don't want revisions. They want likes. So don't give them any revisions. You keep revising it until they get the likes they want. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's still collaborative in the sense that they get to say what they want. They get to say what their success metrics are going to be. They get to say, I don't know. Well, I already said it, like their strategies and what their intentions and their goals. And you get to help them reach that in however way you think is best based on your area of expertise. It's like being a doctor. You don't get to tell the doctor how to do your triple bypass or that you even need a triple bypass. Like you don't get to say, oh, I need a triple bypass. Okay, great. Yeah. Hop up on the table.
Like that's the thing is, though, that I think we forget is until you experience it the first time and then it starts to dawn, and then the second and third time it starts to really sink in, is that clients actually love it when you say no. Now, bear with me for a second. They don't always love it in the moment, but what they appreciate is that you have a point of view and that you're protecting them. Mm-hmm. They appreciate that. And like I said, it doesn't happen in the moment. Like, what do you mean you're not going to do that? I'm the client. You need to do that. And you say, no, this is why we're not going to do that. Let me explain. Let me just remind you of the goal we have here. And you have that conversation and they're like, okay, yeah, Yeah. But I go back to your proposal as a dress rehearsal for the assignment. So that's the time when you don't want to be just rolling over and saying, oh, yes, we'll do that. Oh, yes, I'll do that. Oh, yes, I'll do this. That's where you really get the chance to let them preview what it's going to be like to work for you, and that you are protecting the ultimate outcome that they are hiring you to create.
Right. Yeah, if you let them push you around in the sales process, it should come as no surprise when they push you around on the project.
Yeah,
it has to. You set that expectation right up front, because if you do push back however you do it, it could even just be having the why conversation in the first place and questioning their request and presenting yourself as someone who's really thoughtful about getting them where they want to go and not just doing what you're told. Mm-hmm. So if they like that, I always say, like when you say to someone, when you pivot in the sales interview, when they brain dump and you're like, this is great, I've got 5 pages of notes, can we back up so I can get the bigger context, because there are 100 ways I could solve this and I don't want to paint us into a corner. I want to make sure that I'm going to get you where you want to go, which has surely not been shared at that point. And good clients will love that question. They'll sit back and they'll get all expansive and be like, oh, if we could, bad clients.
They put their arms out and yes. Yeah. The body language changes.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. Right. The whole tone changes. That's where the pivot happens. When you present yourself as a partner, when all of a sudden you're a peer. And bad clients will lean forward and be like, what do you need to know that for? Or you don't need to know that. Just give us a price. They're clearly going to be bad clients. Yeah. So, right. So,
absolutely.
Yes, the dress. I love the framing of it's a dress rehearsal for the project.
Yeah. I mean, I just keep coming back to that. I think the thing that really resonated for me with Tara's original piece is that, is her ending argument, which is over delivering deflates your value. Mm-hmm. And what you offer is literally worth less. And if you think about that, so you could, you have this hourly person, there's still probably some listening here. And so you could say, well, if I work more, I charge more. Probably not. You're probably going to wind up writing off some of the time. If you've got a flat fee, which happens a lot with coaches in particular, and then we over deliver. And before you know it, what looked like a really great flat fee actually looks pretty bad relative to the amount of time that you're spending. So it's that, I just think that this is, it's about boundaries, it's about status, but it's really about protecting not only your vision for the outcomes, because you're building a body of work here, but it's also protecting how you feel about yourself. Because the more that you consider yourself sort of low status relative to clients, the lower you're going to go, the worse you're going to feel about it, the less fun it's going to be, the more drudgery it will be, the more toxic your relationships with clients will be.
Right. And it's like, and that's a downward ratchet that you see on a website like Clients from Hell, where certain, like a giant chunk of the sort of online freelance community, it just thinks all clients are awful.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right? I don't get a lot of those folks in my communities. I don't know why. I guess there's something I do that filters those people out. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But there's a huge community of people just eye rolling. All clients are stupid. All clients are mean. All clients want the lowest price. And I'm like, No, not all the bad ones do.
Yeah, that's like a chorus. Yeah, that's like a chorus you just can't participate in.
Yeah,
right. It's a form of well, never mind.
Commiseration. Let's just say commiseration.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was doing a tweet chat with a group of people that were kind of saying that. Like I said, what percentage of your clients do you feel like you're doing your best work with, and you're doing all this, and like somebody said, like none.
Yeah.
And, and the problem is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I just believe we, spend the time to figure out exactly who your dream client is. And it's probably going to change as your business grows and morphs and you change what you like to do. But always be clear on who that client is and go after those like the last bus of the night, or try to appeal to them. Right? So they come to you. But I mean, ignore these bad clients. Who needs them? I don't want them in my space. I don't even want to talk about bad clients.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh no, they might come in. They might get their nose, under the door somehow. No. It's like, yeah. And it's that collective sometimes when you get into a collective of people that are ranting. And don't get me wrong, we all need to rant. Jonathan and I rant to each other usually, at least for like a couple minutes every Tuesday. But you just get it out and you move on. To have that rant constantly in your head is not going to help you. You've got to find the great people that you associate with, not the people who just think everybody's bad.
Right. And I think the way that it ties into over-delivering is if you've got these sort of toxic clients who just seem really demanding and you wake up in the morning and you just like open your inbox like through squinted eyes, hoping that there's no all caps subject line screaming out at you. Like that, and then you're kind of like in this, there's this temptation to write off hours or software developers have this thing called gold plating where you add stuff in that nobody asked for. You're like, oh, but it would be so cool if it did this. And it's like, no one wanted that. And now we have to maintain that code. So, take it out.
That's insidious.
Oh yeah, it is. It's even worse. The software developers listening will know what I mean. When you just spend weeks refactoring stuff because the code's not elegant enough, or because this is going to be hard to maintain, or this is going to produce technical debt. Like all of those things are true, but sometimes, for example, technical debt, sometimes it makes sense to take on debt, right? In the financial world, but also in a software project. Like if there's a window of opportunity that's slamming shut, it's like you just hack and slash your way to an MVP and you publish that thing. And once you clear the window, then you can have anybody go back and refactor it if you really want to. So anyway, there's different, it's kind of like the bad grammar episode. It's like sometimes you want to break the rules. Sometimes you will refuse to break the rules. If you're just not going to work on that kind of project, that's fine. But, over delivering isn't, I feel like in situations where you've got these bad demanding clients, where over-delivering to keep them off your back is a common reaction. And then they're like, oh, if I just keep yelling at this person, they'll just keep giving me things for free. So, wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, there's also the other, though. There's the over-delivering out of a sense of purpose. And I once ran a group of coaches and career consultants. And when I say career consultants, they were kind of like coaches. Their biggest joy came from helping torpedoed corporate executives find their next work. And it was really, really amazing, rewarding work. But what would happen when I took over the national practice is I would go to visit these offices, and I learned they were crazy over delivering because the way that the contracts were sold, these were Fortune 500 companies spending millions of dollars on these contracts. It would be, the gold package is 10 hours and the silver package is 5 hours and the bronze is 3. And they would routinely deliver 2 or even 3 times the number of hours that had been purchased. And when I started talking to them, I didn't understand this, it was all very fascinating. So I would go around, I was trying to figure out why the numbers weren't working the way they should be. And as I'm listening to people, I got it. But the beauty of it wasn't a one down thing. It was just the opposite. It was that they were so wanting to help their client, to meet them where they were, to get them to this better place. And they felt constrained by the deal. They felt constrained by the hours, and they felt that they couldn't impact the hours, and they could, but it was complicated, and they were actually right. It was hard for them to do that. But it was, and so I started to watch, after I had that job, I started to watch coaches in particular, and I found it's not uncommon, even when the coach negotiates the terms of the deal. They're so wired to help, to get people to this other edge, that they routinely over-deliver.
So this brings up a really, really interesting rabbit hole about what are you delivering in the first place. So like those coaches that sold the hours, they sold the wrong thing. And they knew it.
Of course they did.
They inherently knew that the hours are irrelevant. So when it gets to, this goes back to the, like, obedience doesn't produce value, right? Like, doing what they told you to do isn't going to produce value. Giving them results is if you want to demonstrate value, it's not like be obedient. It's like produce value, deliver results. Yeah. So in the case with the coaches that you just said, it's like, or even when you think of the concept of over delivering in general, I think people who are likely to fall victim to this, what does over delivering mean? It probably doesn't mean, exceeding the client's success metric for the project by an extra 100%. That's probably not what they're thinking of when they think of over delivering. When they think of over delivering, they're probably thinking of more deliverables, more inputs. Like, I'm gonna put more time into this because I'm not reaching, or I don't even know what the desired outcome is. So that's one, like, in other words, over deliver, like you're delivering more of this thing that isn't actually inherently valuable to the client. Like, your time's valuable to you, of course, but if somebody spends 100 hours working on fixing my brakes on my car, and after the 100 hours they're not fixed, those 100 hours are not valuable to me. Like, the brakes don't work, so the car is useless. So like the 100 hours are worth nothing. In fact, they're worth less than nothing, because now I didn't have my car for 100 hours, and someone else who knew what they were doing could have been fixing it in one day. So if people are over delivering in terms of providing more inputs, and I was supposed to write a white paper, but I wrote 2 for them, that's okay. But all of that stuff is a means to an end. If you're over delivering, I'm all for over delivering on the success metric, right? So if the success of the project is, I don't know, increase revenue by 50%, and oops, I increased it by 100%, I'm totally fine with that. Right. But I don't think that's what people are thinking of. I think they're thinking of their inputs when they're delivering more, air quotes, but they're not actually delivering anything in terms of results.
Well, and with coaching, I mean, I'm thinking of this particular group of coaches. It is time. And it's because the person, some people get a new job really quickly. They're resilient, they bounce back, and other people don't, for a variety of reasons that are not all intrinsic to the person, right? It can be the situation. And so the consultant/coach is like, oh, I've got to kind of stay in touch with them because I'm worried they're just going to go, down the drain if I don't make sure that they get that job, even though they've already delivered under the terms of the contract. Right. And again, that's a big firm. That was a Fortune 500 company, very specific contracts, hours-based contracts. We all agree those are stupid. Yeah. But it was the contract. And it was fascinating watching them. And I've noticed that with individual, independent coaches as well. It's because you want your coachee to get to where they need to be, and sometimes it takes more time than you thought it would.
Of course.
That's different to getting to the outcome. The over delivering is, let me be there for their every waking moment and their every possible need, versus the 2 or 3 levers that you can really hit that are going to get them to the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that's a good way to frame it. So another thing just popped into my mind that's very much related, I think. So there's this concept of selling to your own wallet, where sometimes when I'm working with folks and they have been delivering tons of value to their clients, but they've been capturing way too little of it. So they very small margins. They've probably been working hourly or dramatically underpricing their, even if it's fixed fee stuff, dramatically underpricing their services. And you just look at the results they're producing for their clients, and it's like you could triple your fees. And if you continue to produce these kind of outcomes, people will line up to pay you. I don't think everyone needs to raise their prices. There's this always this mantra of charge more in the freelance community. I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think all you have to do is just raise your prices. But if you are delivering ridiculous, amazing results, and your prices can be too low, so you can raise them, and this psychology can kick in a scenario like that, where the seller, who has now doubled or tripled their fees on their next proposal or whatever, and the deal closes. Lo and behold, I told you, there's plenty of margin here for you to take a little bit more, and still the client has a home run. And then they like got paid 2 or 3 times more than they're used to getting paid. So they feel guilty and they put in like extra hours and do extra stuff to feel like they're earning the money. Instead of, it's like, look, no, you're an expert at this. You can hit home runs with one hand tied behind your back. You don't need to make it hard on yourself. It's like, it's easy for you to do this because over 10 years, you built up the expertise to do this specific thing for this specific kind of person, and they're happy as a clam. It's like if you did it in 1 hour or 10 hours or 100 hours, they prefer the 1 hour because then they get the results faster. So anyway, so this there can be this like, well, geez, I got paid $50,000 for a week of work or a week of hours. Like, it seems like it doesn't seem fair. I'm gonna do more. It's cut into your own
it's a total
profits.
Mindset shift.
Yeah.
And, by the way, if somebody's in that space where you're just like, I can remember the first time it happened where I started to get money that was not so related to time. And I'm like, whoa, I got to do some more work.
Right, exactly.
Okay, what am I going to do with this? I have this free time. I have this money. This is really cool, but I better be working harder. Do some reading about, money mindsets and the invisible scripts that we tell ourselves around money, because a lot of that is related to this, and get past the guilt, because that's what you're going for. That's why you build authority to begin with, is so that you can get to this other side where it's not time equals money, that you can start building, the new wealth, which is money, time, and flexibility, right? It's your ideal optimal balance of those 3 things, but you got to get out of your own way to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If it's easy for you to hit home runs, there's no reason for you to make it hard on yourself. Like, make it harder.
Right. But we have this, maybe it's the Puritan work ethic from way back, but we just have this belief that we have to work really, really hard for every single thing. And sometimes you don't, because you've put in the work already and you can actually sow the results.
Yeah. You've created leverage, right? It's almost like you built yourself a chainsaw and you're like, and it cuts down trees so easily that you feel like you're cheating. So you don't turn it on. You just rub it on the tree like a regular saw.
There's a visual.
Right? It's like, no, you spent a year building a chainsaw so that you can cut down trees way faster. So it's the same kind of thing. It's like once you create the leverage and you get that like making money while you sleep stuff, where you've got product sales or you've got productized services that you could do in your sleep, you're so good at it, and they're so reliably produce positive outcomes for the kind of people who you're trying to attract, and you're just like, geez, this feels too easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like,
and if I'm going to make money, it has to be hard.
Yeah. So if you feel like you're doomed to a life of toil, then okay. I mean, that's, I don't know. That doesn't seem like the real wealth. Like you just said, it's like, don't you want autonomy? Don't you want like financial freedom and flexibility in your schedule and all of that stuff? Yeah. So it doesn't have to be, there's a phase where you're creating the leverage where it's a ton of work, but once it's done, enjoy it. Like, you built the chainsaw, start that puppy up.
Exactly. Exactly. It's the guilt. I was raised a Catholic. I always call it my Catholic guilt. And so the guilt doesn't have a place in business. This is about, really leveraging what you have and finding the work that you really love, and not playing these status games, which is what we started with, right. This idea of over-delivering and status and creating relationships that don't work for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a beautiful place to be on the other side of that.
It is. And I think that's why it's so easy for us to talk about, because we've both been there. I mean, I just think about some of the years that I spent, working 60, 80 hours a week on the road. And I'm like, nobody's going to do that today.
Yeah.
It's like, no, the other side is so much sweeter.
Right. I wonder, there seems to be in the Venn diagram going on in my mind here about this, the hourly billing and over delivering is like, I should drill into that more with my regular students, because there's I think a psychology there that before we talked about this was not obvious to me, which is over delivering increases your bank account when you are, assuming you're charging for it. So, and I guess I knew that. That's where a lot of gold plating comes from, the fact that it's like, well, I get to like play with this code and make it perfect and pristine, even though no one actually cares or values that. They probably should, but they don't. And yet you made them pay for it because it was by the hour. And then when you switch to fixed, that behavior of wanting to futz around with your code until it's, so beautiful you could print it out and frame it on your wall. That behavior, I can think of at least one really big example, but I'm sure I have several examples of someone who first switched off of hourly and did their first, fixed price value-based project, and they didn't get the memo quickly enough about not doing that. So instead of that behavior, which is a hard one to break, it could be a very hard behavior to break, where you're just like, oh, this code needs to be perfect. It's like, no, it doesn't. It needs to be good enough to get the results that they wanted. And I'm not saying write bad code, because I know even bad code from a really good developer is still really good code. Is it perfect? Nah, probably not. But whatever. It's like, if it's delivering the results that the client wants, it's good enough. And if you ask them I'm gonna way down a software rabbit. You just open up a whole software rabbit hole for me.
Well, and I'm sitting there going, "What's bad code?
What are
what's
you talking
good
about?"
code?"
Right?
Yeah. No. I was actually really curious about the definition, and I suspect it's subjective, but
it is subjective. It's like buggy or tough to maintain. They're all the technical debt is the umbrella category, where you write code really fast that has lots of without. In a sort of non-thoughtful way. So you just kind of frame up the application crazy fast, and I could go into it, like the code's not dry, and it's all super duper technical stuff, but it's just going to be a pain to deal with forever and ever, amen, unless you go back. And it'd be like, imagine in a house that was like framed really sloppily, and the studs are close enough together, but they're not the same distance apart from each other. So forever you're going to have a pane hanging pictures, because you don't know where the studs are, or, they're not the right width for a standard sheet of drywall. So anytime you need to replace a wall, then you got to you're wasting drywall. It's just like a bad idea. But if you needed the house in 3 days, there was a reason that it went flying up like that.
Gotcha.
So anyway, not to bore people, but you really tore a black hole, like rabbit hole in my mind of like, oh, right. Because there's that futzing behavior that needs to go away. Because once you go fixed price, every hour you work is money you lost. Where the day before, every hour you worked was money you gained, and they don't always get that right away.
I saw that behavior in my 1 month VA, where she was right out of corporate, basically first, second clients, and it's just like whatever time it took her is what she wrote down and what she charged, and like stuff that just doesn't take time for somebody who knows what they're doing, but was charging at this high end. So she never understood that her model wasn't workable. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because I'm going to do everything possible because I don't want to make a mistake. And I don't think it was done in a way to like screw the client. It was like, I want this to be perfect, and I don't know this software, so I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And hey, I'm charging by the hour, so I'm just going to charge the client for all that time.
Yeah. Right.
No, that was a 1 month VA.
Yeah. Hourly punishes expertise, but it rewards, I don't want to call it ineptitude, but it rewards not knowing what you're doing.
Yeah. Inefficiency at the best.
Yeah. Inefficiency. Right.
Yeah.
So how does this take us all back to over-delivering? We've come at this from a few more angles than I even thought of
know.
Before.
It was funny because we were at like 12 minutes, I think, and I'm like, there's no way we have a half hour on this. There's no way. Wrong.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. There's so much psychology, and like the customer is always right, and wouldn't it be better to give them more than less? And it's like, no. It really wouldn't.
It's like a very slippery slope. Mm-hmm. And the reason I think that I liked the piece, that it drew me in, and I actually like slid over to the second slide, is this idea of the status roles. Because I've seen that a lot in consulting with independents who've never consulted before. Like when you're inside a consulting firm, they teach you arrogance. right? I mean, you have to like consciously work to not be arrogant in a lot of big firms. And I'm not saying everybody is, I'm just saying there is a culture that rewards arrogance in many of the big firms. And so you walk out and go to independent and you know, and you understand that you and clients are on equal footing. You get that. But if you've always had a boss, and especially in a very traditional, rigid, hierarchical organization, you're used to taking orders, you know, and this is different. And so I think it's so insidious that I applaud her article for calling it out, and I wanted to amplify it here because you don't want to do that. You are a professional. Even if you're just starting out, you still have knowledge, you have some expertise, and how you use that is going to dictate the future trajectory of your career. So, you know, you're equal. This is not that you are subservient.
Right. Yeah. And if you're a people pleaser type, which probably a lot of service people are, just think more long term about your people pleasing, right? So your desire to please the client. So the desire to please the client in the moment is, I think, what a lot of people do when they're over delivering. This client says jump and you say how high. But in the long term, in the overall project, if you know that taking their request and doing it is going to jeopardize the long-term success of the project, and you're a people pleaser, then you can use that as armor to say, I would love to jump, like you just told me to, but I'm a people pleaser, and I want this project to be a success. So I can't do that. Because in the long term, in the short term, it might make the client happy, but in the long term, it's going to make them sad because the project's going to go over budget, or it's going to fail, or it's going to get canceled, or it's not going to get where they want it to go, or the results that it produces are going to be lower than targeted. So just think, if you consider yourself a people pleaser and you just think, well, I want to please this client in the big picture, not the small picture, because you can't have both.
I like that. You know, use your tendencies for good.
Yeah, exactly.
of both parties, right? You and the client side.
Yes. All right. Jackson's telling us it's time for his walk. So
I know I've got my hand behind his ears, hoping he'll stop shaking. Sorry, guys.
That's all right. Cool. All right. Well, that's it for this week. I'm Jonathan Stark.
And I'm Rochelle Moulton.
And I hope you join us again next time for The Business of Authority. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, I almost said, and I'm Jackson.
Oh, he has a voice, you know.
Is that right?
A very particular voice, yes. I'm Jackson, the Wonder Dog.